A recent Stats Canada survey from spring of 2021 has reported that there is 1 in 4 Canadians over the age of 18 who suffer from a mental illness such as anxiety, depression, PTSD, which has been an increase of approximately 21% since fall of 2020. So if there is one thing that resonates is the importance of mental wellness. And that statistic is really of those who have reported. Think about those and the stigma of mental health that do not report. October being Mental Health Awareness Month, I've had the honor to invite Clovis Grant here today with me from 360 Kids. And they do amazing work in the community, supporting those who are homeless and are looking for housing, having a number of educational programs and other supports in place to really end youth homelessness and provide those supports. And one of those pieces is really to support those youth into employment. So thank you so much, Clovis, for being here today. Clovis is the Executive Director and CEO of 360 Kids. Clovis has been in leadership for over 25 years and supporting the organization in many areas, with recognized for his work with Hope Worldwide and Eva's initiative, as well as other many very important causes to end youth homelessness in Canada and specifically York Region. Clovis holds a Bachelor of Science in Psychology and also a Master of Arts in Leadership. He's also a volunteer at his community church, as well as other community support services within York Region. Welcome, Clovis. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here in this beautiful office today.
My pleasure.
and joining us on the show, and for allowing us to speak about this very important topic of mental health today.
Thank you.
What are some of the considerations that employers need to make when they're considering mental health in the workplace?
I think in sectors like ours, where every day, not just in October, but every day we're dealing with a very vulnerable population. So employers need to anticipate that your staff will always need to be supported. When you've got a pandemic, that adds, exponential needs for employers to be aware. And so I think just being aware of what your staff are doing and then responding accordingly, because it is real. These are people who are on the front lines, oftentimes dealing with other people's other people's challenges, but they also have their own personal lives. They're also experiencing, if we're talking about the pandemic, in their own personal lives. They've got kids, they've got family members. Some are in the sandwich generation. And so as an employer, you've got to be aware of the internal as well as the external environment that your staff are in.
I think that's such an important point, that it's not just their professional life that you need to be concerned about, is to be aware of all these other factors in that personal life. So when we talk about youth employment specifically, what are some of the factors that employers should consider when we're attracting that talent, when we're engaging that youth talent, and essentially looking for them to be that next sort of up and comer within the organization? What specifically to youth employment, how should they be tailoring their approach to support and keeping mental health in mind?
Wow, that's a big and an important question, because we're in a very unique time right now in Canada, because the population is aging and we've got a lot of the baby boomers who are retiring. So it really is an employee market.
Very much
and
so.
Even so during COVID. And so as an employer, we're finding that it's attracting and retaining staff is certainly a challenge. And if you're not flexible, if you don't recognize that people are looking for things differently from maybe when I was younger, and in the past, the baby boomers worked at one job, stayed there forever. This generation, not so much. And so how do we ensure that the work environment is one that is actually engaging? So you've got to ask questions. And so every year we would do an employee engagement survey to understand what it is that staff want from us. And it covers a whole range of things, from health and safety, equity, anti-oppression, pay, let's just go there, and how they feel about management. So you've got to, you can't shy away from knowing. And when you know, then you can respond. And if you don't engage them, they will go somewhere else. And so when you're talking about mental health, and we were all talking about the back to normal, and how do you get back to normal? What does that look like for an employer? And are we going to be flexible? Are we going to go back to everybody has to be in the office? Or maybe there's a different way of doing it. We talk about hybrid models. And so as an employer, we're wrestling with all of that stuff, because on the one hand, in our business, you have to be on the front line. We have residential programs. Young people need you to be there physically. But then we also have administrative staff. And so how do we recognize that for 18 months we've operated with most people outside the office, and we're still around, things happened, we met deliverables. Are there some things that we can learn? So I would say, as an employer, to be flexible, to hear what your employees are saying, and then responding accordingly, because if you don't, you will not be an employer of choice.
Absolutely.
And the young people will have no allegiance. It's already hard because of the environment we're in with young people and work. It becomes even harder now that we're in where we're going into a post-pandemic time.
We hope.
We hope, yes. It becomes even more of a challenge to even step up those expectations.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that you had said there really resonated is that alignment, right? And individuals are now, and youth obviously included, that they're looking for an employer that they're going to be aligned with on many fronts. What are they doing in terms of their community involvement? Are they diverse, or an employer that's equitable and fair and has programs for mental well-being in place? Because as much as the pay matters, it's definitely not the be-all end-all, especially that we've had time to reflect on what's important to us. And specifically, I find that with the generation of the youth right now, considering the differences in baby boomers, it's a different mindset, and rightfully so, from the lessons that we've all sort of learned along the way.
Indeed.
Very, very important. Thank you. So how should employers really tailor or implement any type of mental wellness strategies in our ongoing, hopefully post-pandemic time that we're approaching? What is sort of the best things that they should be doing right now to ensure that they're aligned and that those strategies for mental wellness are in place?
Yeah, it's something that we are dealing with, and I think it goes back to anticipating and knowing that this is a reality for the people that are working with you. And so being flexible. I think we can't get around being flexible, knowing that there are things that people expect of you as an employer. And if you are not willing to think about things like remote learning or remote working, you got to think about that and figure out how to make that applicable. So you've got to be thinking about who it is that you have working with you. You've got to provide resources as well. We have an employee assistance program, so reminding people that exists. It's free. Everybody can access it. Sometimes people don't think about it.
Right.
We say they struggle in silence. So I think talking about these things, that you're not alone when you're dealing with mental health challenges. Typically when your leg is broken, it's clear, you go to a doctor and you get it fixed. when we're struggling mentally, it's not as visible, and so a lot of people just grunt through and push through, and sometimes they just need somebody to say, you know what, it's okay, you're not alone. Here are some things that are out there, because it breaks down the shame that I should be doing this. I'm counseling other people. I should be better, and that's a lot of pressure. As I said, it's not just the work, but it's your personal life, and so letting people know about the availability of these resources, talking openly about it, creating space within the work environment, and even how we create opportunities for people to connect, not just in offices, but open spaces where people can talk. I mean, we moved to this office a few years ago, and one of the things we were looking for is just some of those kinds of spaces where people can eat together, not at your desk, right? Because when you're at your desk, you don't take the time to break away from the work. So it's recognizing that there are different ways that we can talk about wellness, and maybe even sometimes the language. You know, when you say mental health, it conjures up images that maybe are very negative. But when you talk about well-being, health and well-being, maybe just that shift in wording can also be a factor. So when you talk about wellness, we brought in some yoga, even virtual yoga, just to say it's okay, you know, did some lunch and learns. Those kinds of things where we, even in a virtual space, trying to bring people together are some of the things that we've done to say, we know it's a tough time, but here are some things that we can do.
That's fantastic. I really think that the open dialogue and those strategies are so important for employers to use as tips and areas that they could truly implement very easily and simply.
And you make a good point there, because it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. And I think that's sometimes the challenge that people have. They think they have to create this major program, but we don't have a huge budget for this, but we know that it's a need. So we take advantage of resources, webinars that are happening in the community, and connecting people to it. When the situation with George Floyd, and people needed space to have those dialogues. How do we create those opportunities for people, connect them to things going on, and talking openly? It's so important.
Yeah, very important. Thank you. You shared with us a number of strategies which you've implemented, and so why would you say, what is the result? What are the findings, or what are the successes that you're finding as a result of these strategies you've implemented here at 360 Kids, and what is it that we can encourage or motivate other employers to do? You know, why should they sort of jump on board with this?
I would boil it down to one word: care.
Yes.
I think people know that we care. Sometimes I don't know what to do, but if we just do something, people know that we're thinking about them, that we care about them. And it's one thing as an employer to write policies and put things down to say we care about our employees, but it's doing something to demonstrate that care. So I would say I'm probably the worst person to ask that question. The proof is really, what would my staff say? And what would the staff say about things that we've done? They know that we've created space for people virtually to be able to come together, and some lunch and learns where some people did gardening tips and techniques. Another group talked about creative mask making.
Oh.
Some interest some people, some interest other people.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's people coming together, and people talking with each other, and even that is therapeutic.
Right.
And so I would think that my staff would say that we've demonstrated care. While we cannot give the pay that people expect, there are some things that we could do to make the environment that we work in a little bit more bearable. And when we have opportunities to get additional funding, which we were able to do with the frontline top up to wages, we went after that, and we applied, and we gave that for the time that it was allotted. So those things, of course, made people say, you know what, they were thinking about us, and advocated for us to get this support. So I think showing people that you care makes a huge difference in how they receive some of this stuff. And I don't look at the numbers, because if you look at the numbers, you might think, why do I even do these things? Because not everybody shows up to them, but that's okay. Not everybody has to. But it's, you create the environment. You've heard it, you build it, they'll come. Just do it, and do it consistently. People then know that you do care, and that's important.
Very, very important. And I always say it's hard to find people that care when they're speaking with passion about what they're doing, or another individual. That creates that you care about your staff, so they care about each other. And it just creates that cohesive sort of environment where people want to be at work, because it's a safe space, and one that creates that mental wellness and gives them that motivation. It's such a great time today talking to you about this, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day and your schedule to really highlight the importance of mental wellness, and in the workplace specifically, and how we can use these strategies right now pretty simply, as well as thinking of the future of our world of work with youth employment. So really appreciate you taking the time, Clovis. And how is it that our audience can reach out to you? How can they find you if they'd like to understand more about what you do and your work here at 360 Kids?
Well, we're all over social media. Our website is 360kids.ca, and through the social media handles, it's 360kids_York. You can find us, and we appreciate this conversation as well, because mental health, mental well-being is not a topic of conversation that's talked a lot about, but certainly during the pandemic, it has become more less stigmatized, if I can say that. So I appreciate you bringing more awareness, because that is key. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.